You have just come off stage
Yeah.
at Kicks
Bar.
on the Saturday night. So tell us, how did the gig go?
I think good. Well, not quite good. I'm gonna go with well. I think, honestly, I had a really good show last night. I don't know if this is just me or all comedians, but I think when you have a really good show, the next night you never have a really good show. It's very rare to have two good shows in a row, because you're like, why isn't this hitting like last night? So tonight I thought I started a bit flat, got them in the middle. They were like, hey, we're all right now. And they were very receptive to the Genocide material. But then I didn't stick the landing on the Bogan joke. It was a fucking nightmare. I was very annoyed at the endings. I was like, I think I've got it. And then when I left the stage, I was like, no one felt like that was the end. When the crowd doesn't feel like it's the end, it's never great. But yeah, it was a weird one. Because it wasn't bad. Like, I've had a bad show this run. You know that show that's like, whoa, I should stop, like, doing this ever again. Which is awkward when it's like, taxable income. But yeah, that was just like a show. I will never think about it ever again.
You've been doing this for how long now? 10 years?
Almost 10 years, yeah.
10 years. Did the show that you just had teach you that there are just some things that even after 10 years experience are unpredictable? There's just no way you know which way the mop is going to flop.
Yes and no. Because if you told, because I reckon every comedian a minute into a set has a pretty good idea of how it's going to go. And what I would have thought happened, I think the general vibe was correct. I was like, this isn't going to be in my top 50, you know what I mean? This isn't going to be in the bloody montage when I die. You know, this gig ain't in there. But if you told me they were really going to get quite into the heavier topics, which they did, I would have been like, nah, they want dick and pussy stuff. But they really did engage with the more intellectual stuff, I thought, which I wouldn't have predicted.
There's some pretty hard material you were going through, and you do say in the show that if everybody likes the show, you haven't done your job properly.
Yeah.
You're talking about genocide quite a bit. Genocide is bad, but
it is.
You raise the issue, is it funny? Should it be funny?
Yes.
It's very edgy material. I think you got away with it.
Yeah.
But you were certainly skirting, I guess, that edge that all good comedians should skirt.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm not going to say that's what all good comedians should do, because I think there are some very hilarious, very absurd comedians who have no business talking about anything that's going on in the actual world. So I'm not going to say you have to do that, but all the comedians I admire, all the comedians that I aspire to be similar to, do that. And I get very frustrated when, you got an hour in a room with no filter and you want to talk about Uber? Fuck you. Grow up. Anyway, so that's me. But I'd like to think I'm mature enough to be you don't have to do it like me. But I'm a man, I know my limitations, I will only ever be able to tell anyone how to do it more like me. That's all anyone's ever capable of advising you to do.
Who are your influences and how many of them predate you?
All of them, pretty much.
Who are they?
Your Patrice O'Neills, your Bill Burrs, your Greg Giraldos, maybe Anthony Jeselnik to a degree, but just as a kind of getting into it thing. You can really talk about anything. You can just really do whatever the fuck you want. And then, I don't know, they're all basically, it's all black American guys, usually from Boston. That seems to be the vibe. The guys who are around now, roughly my age, are your Jared Carmichaels, your Michael Che's, those kind of, people who say stuff. I like people who say stuff.
Very interested in the emphasis on white, that you're white. So where does white fit in to your comedy? How does that operate?
Well, I should be talking about I talk about whiteness a lot because I don't think it should be treated as this norm. You should talk about whiteness just like you talk about any other thing, this isn't standard. There's this is, you know what I mean? Like I'm not articulating it very well, but that's all. I just want to because that's what I am. That's where we are. Like, and why are we just talking about like people as like white people? It's like I had this joke. I forget exactly how it goes. It's just like I don't see color, and it's just like I just see you as another white person. Like, that's what you're implying, you know what I mean? Like, it's not that you're acknowledging their cultural difference, it's that you're reducing them to your culture, which they're not. Like, I don't want to speak on behalf of every other race, but I'm pretty sure they're not just trying to be treated as white people. They're just trying to be treated as people. So, yeah, I mean, I put it in the show titles because I think it's funny. Like, I think it's a funny thing. Like, I really last year it was like, oh, more Mr. White Guy. This year it's white and wrong, but mostly white. Like, next year I was thinking, like, how the whitey have fallen. Like, you know, it's just fun. Like, why don't we talk about it? It's just this elephant just sitting there.
Now, with your attack on Bogans, you pretty much define Bogan as people who are without any definable culture other than their own comfort and convenience. Would that be fair?
No. I don't think that's what I mean by Bogan. I think
what do you mean by Bogan?
Being a Bogan. It's the thing, because I talk about it in the show. There's nothing wrong with being wrong. There's only something wrong with staying wrong. Like, if you purposefully decide and continue to be wrong, like, I don't like that. So that's what I think a Bogan is. And it's funny because during this run, I had a guy front row, Bogan as fuck, like the most Bogan dude. And I'm like doing the joke and I'm like, man, look, this is going to be pretty relevant to you, so let me know what you think. And he was such a fascinating guy. I'm not going to say his name, just so you know. But he listened to the joke and he was like, look, yeah, I honestly think we're all on a spectrum of Boganism. His exact phrasing, which I thought was very fascinating. He was a country guy, come to Melbourne to study at university, and it was like during COVID, he couldn't handle like the big city, so he went back, and now he's like at TAFE doing mechanic thing. He's going to be a mechanical engineer, and like, by my definition, he's not a Bogan. He's just a guy with a mullet, a blue singlet, and like a car that terrifies other people. Like, that's all he is, because he wants knowledge.
Bogan more like willful ignorance?
Yeah.
About being comforted by your own ignorance?
Yeah, like
using it maybe as a buffer.
Correct.
To the real world?
Yeah, not even as like a buffer necessarily, but like using ignorance as just this like, what, I don't know. Like, but what, don't you think we did is wrong? I don't know. And I'm unwilling to ever know. You get me? Just like, they refuse to like engage with anything, to protect themselves from being accountable for anything. There we go.
Leave me alone with the jet ski and the 2 cars and the McMansion.
Yeah.
And
exactly. That's why all their activities are fucking loud, so they can't take in any information. It's like, no. It's never like, the planet's dying. They just don't want to listen.
Daniel, you're 32.
Yeah.
So you are post-boomer.
Yes.
Are boomers getting an easy run?
Well, this is the thing. I actually don't like that I use boomer in my comedy, because like I don't really buy into the generation divide thing. Like, I try to use it as just a shorthand to imply like a certain age of person. It's just like linguistically eloquent rather than like the total argument I'm making. And the reason I talk about it is because I'm like, the world has changed a lot from them until now. You know what I mean? I just want to distinguish. Like, instead of saying 70 years ago, I'm just like, these people who are still alive, because they're still alive. Like, did boomers have a good run? Of course they bloody did. But, like, is it their fault they just happened to nail when they were born? And I'm like, no. Like, that bit, like, is like everyone individually culpable for the exact privilege they're born into? Not really. But if they're like completely sympathyless dicks about it, then yeah, I'll come after you and your dumb cunt. Like, I'll do it. But yeah, I don't think attacking boomers is clever, but I think the points I make are.
Can you just clarify for us your position within the Melbourne Comedy Festival in 2022?
Well, like, I'm part of the guide. I perform shows that are part of the Melbourne International Comedy Festival. I pay them a registration fee, and then that's essentially where our time together ends. Like, they don't really have any interest in my show, I don't believe. Like, I don't think they'd ever consider me for like any opportunities in order to promote it. I don't know why that is. I don't think it's like anything personal, really. It's just that I haven't operated within their system. Like, I didn't do Raw, I didn't do Comedy Zone. Like, I do apply for festival managed venues every year just for fun. I get rejected on the first day every year. It's great. And like, it's fine. Like, I don't think what I do is something the festival is trying to promote. And that's fine. Like, it's just that I want my audiences to know. It's like, I'm doing this and you can change how I do it and my level of success by being a part of it. And you already are by being here. So I just try to make that distinction to crowds, because it's not like, oh man, can't wait till he gets on the gala and it's all fine. It's like, I won't even get on festival play. Like, you know, and it's like, and I think I'm, you know, that's fine. It's just that I thought about this recently when comedians get these very big money deals with podcasting and things like that, and it's like, if you are commercially tied to something, whether explicitly or implicitly, they can control what you say and do. And I'm kind of like, maybe I don't want that. I used to want all these things. I used to want it to be in and be helped and all that kind of stuff, and I'm like, but then inherently they can take it away. Whereas if you're direct to consumer, they can't. Like, they can't stop you.
Do you believe in a comedy god?
Comedy god? No. What? I've heard some pretty hacky British acts say, thanks, comedy gods, when someone has like a funny job. And I'm like, nah, man, that's just probability. Like, at some point, someone's going to have a silly job. Just like someone's going to say accountant. Like, there's no God up there. Like, no.
Is comedy an instinct that you're born with, or is it a skill that you develop?
A skill. Well, I mean, comedy's like the interesting word to choose there. Is stand-up a skill or an instinct? And I'm like, well, it's a skill. Because stand-up is structure and patterns and construction and all these things that you know, create. Whereas like being funny, I think you can learn how to do that too. But I think obviously that's just people who instinctively are funny.
Does being a comedian increase your sex appeal?
I guess. I think, honestly, and this is, some people say this, but I think it is true. I think for a guy, yes. I'm not sure for like, just for my female comedian friends, they're like, we do never put comedian on our dating profiles ever. Because to just cop all these dudes being like, oh, let me tell you a joke. Like, it's like genuinely that. Whereas like, yeah, I mean, my wife is awesome. And like, I think if I was a lawyer, I don't think she would have been that interested, to be honest.
Were you in the mood tonight? Were you in the zone tonight?
Not really.
So what is it? Sorry.
No, please. Not really is a fine answer. I talk forever. It's a problem.
What is it like performing when, by your own admission, you're not actually in the zone? What's it like? You're up there for an hour trying to make people laugh.
Well, this is the thing. It's like, Bill Burr has this great thing where he's like, jokes are what comedians have for when they're not funny. So like, if you're not on, you better have 60 minutes of jokes that are, because you don't get to just not be funny that night. You don't get to have everyone leave just not laughing because you weren't feeling it. Like, that's the profession versus the hobby. And yeah, like when you're on stage, it's just weird because like you're ducking in and out of it, because like you're kind of feeling some bits and you're kind of getting it back and the energy's there and your brain's going and your mind's working, and then you just like half trip up on a word, or you pause somewhere, like your crowd works a little bit off, or like just something just throws you back to, it's basically like if skating, not that I'm a skater, but I could imagine if skating you had to stop every time your foot hit the pavement. So like instead of just going bang, bang, 2 feet on the board, off you go, it's like one thing and then straight back down. One thing, straight back down. There is just absolutely no momentum.
How do you assess the power of comedy?
I think like it's really good for me on a personal level. Like I think I'm significantly happier since I started doing comedy. It's a place where I feel I can be honest. I talked about this more last year, where it's like, you know, Hannah Gadsby in Nanette was talking about how she had to be dishonest on stage, and I just found that so strange, because I was like, this is where I'm the most honest. Like, I'm much more honest up here than I am like in conversation. But like the power of it for people, I mean, I try and talk about pretty intense things because they're what people need to laugh about. Like, you don't need to laugh about something that's already funny. You don't need me for that. It's good on its own. It doesn't need interpretation. Whereas, like, yeah, I mean, I've watched stuff when I've been really upset and it's like turned it around. Other people come up to me. That's why I'm trying to talk about the fertility thing, because, like, you know, we are trying to get pregnant at the moment and it has been a struggle. And when I talk about it with male friends, they'll be like, oh yeah, I know about that. And then like, they'd never mention it otherwise. But it's like the fact that I'm up there having a conversation about it, hopefully someone's watching being like, yeah man, we're fucking struggling too, you know? And it's really good that someone else is.
Are you Team Rock or Team Smith?
Oh, what? Of course. Chris Rock, are you crazy? Are you crazy? Like, this is the thing, right? Say what you want about the joke. Like, I don't care. Like, I think as soon as you get into, well, was it funny, about an argument about a reaction to a joke, you've lost. Because, like, what, there's this objective meter is there. Like, if that joke was funny, then Chris Rock gets to slap him. Oh, it's so funny. You get to hit him now. Good on you, mate. It's stupid. There's no, like, you can't hit a guy on television when there's 12 cameras on. You just can't do that. Regardless. Like, unless Chris Rock hits you, maybe, then it's like self-defense to some degree. I went to law school, man. There's no keep your wife's name out of my mouth defense. That's not a thing. Like, yeah, it's so open and shut. And like, yeah, and I promise you the one thing that every comedian saw when they saw that is how vulnerable and alone he was up there. Because every time I've ever been threatened with physical violence during a show, which is a couple of times, you're always alone. The venue never gives a shit. They never help. Security never comes. The venue owner never bothers. They're just like, oh no, they just bought a beer. They're staying. Like, you're always on your own. And it was amazing watching that on TV and just being like, there's literally a room full of people and no one was like, hey Chris, you okay? Like, no one. Not one. You're getting the headset? Hey Chris, you alright?
It was Will Smith, are you okay?
Yeah, it's like,
they
hey,
all
Will.
went up to him and said,
dude, always on our own. Honestly, that's the one thing about comedy, that brick wall, man. It's the perfect metaphor. It's just you and no one else. And there's nothing between you and them.
You mentioned 9/11 quite a bit. How old were you?
I must have been 12.
Can I just quickly ask
Sure.
where you were when you found out, how you reacted as a preteen?
Oh, yes, you can't possibly comprehend it. As a 12-year-old, I was staying at my dad's house because it was a Tuesday night, and that's old school divorce rules. That gets you Tuesday. And anyway, I remember I woke up and he was just watching the TV. I just remember watching it and being like, man, that's crazy. Anyway, what's for breakfast? You know, you don't relate to it. But it's funny actually, because like, you know, I do jokes about it. And my very good friend who's a comedian, Steve Hofstetter, was actually born on 9/11, and he was in New York at Columbia University studying when it happened. And, you know, he likes the joke. So, that's it.
Just tell me a little bit about what you were and what you were doing that led you into comedy.
Well, yeah, I went to a primary school, then high school, then university, as is the usual order. And then at university I was studying law. I did arts law, which was like 5-year undergrad. And about 2.5 years in, I realized, oh, I hate this. I hate this. My dad's a lawyer. He was like, you can study it, but never practice it. And I was like, I'll show you, Pops. And I'm like, oh, he's right, this sucks. And the guy suggested I do comedy. I was more interested in writing, because I was like, that seems cool. And then I realized writing's really hard. You gotta write stuff down. Comedy doesn't write anything down. I can just think of things and save it. It's great. It's so much better. So I wrote this play. I'd never seen a play really, so I wrote a play before I'd seen one. It was alright, it was funny. And I did comedy a few times. I was really terrible. But then what I wanted to do, my friend wanted to start an open mic, so I did that. And then, yeah, I just kind of kept doing comedy and everything else kind of kept falling away. Like any other professional aspect of my life just slowly dropped off.
What were the other professional things you were doing?
The only job I ever really had, I was like out of uni, was like running comedy stuff at the open mic and different gigs. But pub trivia, I was a host at pub trivia. That's how I got kind of comfortable on a microphone.
How did your 2 years in the UK work out?
It was the best, man. Best thing I've ever done professionally. Because I went there being like, I want to be a professional comedian. That's all I want. Like, I'm not I want to be on radio, I want to be TV. Like, I like stand-up comedy. That's the one thing I like. People are like, do you want to act in this? No. I want to do stand-up comedy, please. And so I did that, and I was like, I'm not going to get another job. And I made it. 2 years in the UK, never had another job. Made enough money, just with my wife helping me, some lucky breaks here and there, but by the end I was doing fine, and I was like getting progressed through the UK circuit. I did gigs all over Europe, UK, Edinburgh twice. I'd already done it before, but like, got the reviews, was like packing out the room, it was good. It was just the best. It's just a professional comedy circuit. That's what Australia doesn't have, unfortunately. Because they just got the population density, they've got the culture of comedy. Dude, like going to stand-up comedy in Australia is like going to cricket in America. Like, people do it, but like generally, like people who know the players, like, there's like, it's not a professional live circuit here.
So you make a living from stand-up comedy, and you're based now back here in Sydney?
Yeah.
You're quite comfortable, confident that you'll be able to sustain that level of income here?
I mean, look, I hope it bloody goes up, to be honest. Sustaining is not going to cover the kids. I don't know if you've heard, Sydney's pretty pricey. But yeah, I mean, I'm optimistic. I'm trying to sell tickets. I like doing live comedy. I try to do it properly. I try to do good shows so people keep coming back and just sell more tickets year after year after year. Looking at someone like Luke Heggie is a great example. Because like, he just keeps selling more tickets by being excellent. And that's fine. That's a proposition I'm happy to take on.
You make several references, jokes in your show about arts funding in Australia. Daniel Muggleton, what is your view of the arts funding situation in Australia?
Jim, I'll be honest with you. To get arts funding involves filling out forms. I didn't get into comedy to fill out forms, so I haven't checked. But I'm sure it's going great, and I'm sure they're giving some people money. I assume it's always good to give them more money, but to be honest, I went to private school, so I'm like, don't worry, I'll sort myself out. That's my reconciling my privilege.